The dust swirled across the barren plains of Wyoming Territory as Sophia Montgomery stood beside the lone wagon, her family's retreating figures growing smaller against the horizon. Her father's final words still stung like the lash of a whip. "You've brought nothing but shame to this family. You're no daughter of mine." At 22, abandoned in the wilderness with only a small trunk of possessions, Sophia wondered if this desolate stretch of earth would become her grave. Wyoming Territory, 1876. The American frontier was unforgiving to most, but particularly cruel to a woman alone. Sophia had been traveling west with her family, headed for Oregon's promise of fertile land when her refusal to marry her father's business partner, a man 30 years her senior with a reputation for cruelty, had resulted in her banishment. Her own blood had left her to the mercy of the wilderness, choosing their prospects over their daughter. Sophia sank to her knees, the reality of her situation crashing down upon her. Night would fall soon, bringing with it predators both animal and human. The trunk contained her clothes, a few books, and barely enough food for 2 days. Her canteen was half empty. She wasn't prepared for this. No one had taught her how to survive alone. A distant cloud of dust caught her attention, riders approaching. Sophia's heart hammered in her chest. She had heard the stories: outlaws, raiders, men who would do unspeakable things to a woman alone. Frantically, she searched for somewhere to hide, but the flat terrain offered no shelter. The trunk wouldn't conceal her. She was exposed, vulnerable. The riders drew closer, 3 men on horseback. Sophia stood tall, refusing to die cowering. If these were to be her final moments, she would face them with dignity. Her hand tightened around the small knife she kept in her pocket, the only protection she possessed. The lead rider slowed his horse as they approached. He was tall and broad-shouldered, his face partially obscured by a wide-brimmed hat. The dust settled around them as the horses came to a stop. "Miss," his voice was deep but gentle. "Are you in trouble?" Sophia hesitated, years of warnings about strangers warring with her desperate circumstances. "My family, they've gone on without me." The man dismounted, his movements careful as if approaching a spooked animal. Now that he was closer, Sophia could see his face clearly weathered by sun and wind, but kind. His eyes were a striking blue against his tanned skin, and a neatly trimmed beard framed a strong jaw. He wasn't young, perhaps in his early 30s, but he carried himself with the easy confidence of a man accustomed to hardship. "Name's Russell Hayes," he said, keeping a respectful distance. "These are my brothers, Timothy and Joseph." He gestured to the men still mounted. "We run the Double H Ranch about 10 miles east of here." "Sophia Montgomery," she replied, her voice steadier than she felt. Russell's eyes took in her trunk, the emptiness around her, and understanding dawned in his expression. "They left you intentionally." It wasn't a question. Sophia nodded, unsure whether to feel shame or anger. "I refused a marriage arrangement. My father didn't take it well." A muscle tightened in Russell's jaw. No man with a shred of decency abandons his kin in open country. He glanced at his brothers, some unspoken communication passing between them. "Miss Montgomery, I can't in good conscience leave you here. Night's coming, and this isn't safe country for anyone alone, least of all a lady." "What are you suggesting, Mr. Hayes?" Sophia asked, caution edging her voice. "Our ranch is close. My sister-in-law Martha lives there with us. You're welcome to shelter with us until you decide your next steps." His eyes met hers directly. "You have my word as a man of honor that no harm will come to you under our roof." Sophia weighed her options, which were painfully few: die in the wilderness or trust this stranger. The decision, when framed that way, wasn't difficult. "I accept your offer, Mr. Hayes." "Thank you." Russell nodded, then turned to his youngest brother. "Joseph, help Miss Montgomery with her trunk." To Sophia, he said, "You can ride with me if that's acceptable. Jasper here is gentle as a lamb." He patted his chestnut stallion's neck. Minutes later, Sophia found herself seated in front of Russell on his horse, her trunk secured to Joseph's mount. The intimacy of the position, Russell's arms around her to hold the reins, was improper by any social standard, but survival trumped propriety. His body was solid and warm against her back. a living shield against the growing chill of evening. As they rode east, the setting sun painted the vast Wyoming landscape in fiery oranges and deep purples. Despite her circumstances, Sophia couldn't help but be moved by the wild beauty surrounding them. "It's something, isn't it?" Russell's voice was close to her ear. "Some folks only see emptiness out here. I see freedom." "It's beautiful," Sophia admitted. "Though perhaps more beautiful when one isn't facing death by exposure." Russell chuckled, the sound rumbling through his chest against her back. "Fair point, Miss Montgomery. First time out west. Yes, my family was from Philadelphia." Sophia swallowed hard. "Father invested poorly, lost nearly everything. Oregon was to be our fresh start." "Plenty of fresh starts to be had out here," Russell said, "for those willing to work for them." They crested a small rise, and suddenly the Double H Ranch came into view. It wasn't the largest ranch Sophia had seen during their journey west, but it was substantial, a main house built of sturdy logs, several outbuildings, corrals filled with horses, and cattle dotting the surrounding pastures. A creek wound through the property, lined with cottonwoods that stood like sentinels against the darkening sky. "It's not much compared to Philadelphia," Russell said, "but it's home." "It's wonderful," Sophia replied honestly. After weeks in a cramped wagon and then facing abandonment, the ranch looked like paradise. As they approached, a woman emerged from the main house, wiping her hands on her apron. She was petite with honey blonde hair piled atop her head, her face friendly but curious. "That's Martha, Timothy's wife," Russell explained. "Best cook in 3 territories and handy with a rifle to boot." They dismounted in the yard, Russell helping Sophia down with strong hands at her waist. The brief contact sent an unexpected warmth through her that she quickly dismissed as simple gratitude. "Who's this?" Martha asked, approaching with a welcoming smile despite her questioning tone. Russell explained Sophia's situation succinctly while Joseph brought her trunk from his horse. Martha's expression shifted from curiosity to outrage to compassion. "Left you alone on the prairie, your own family." She shook her head in disbelief. "Well, you're with decent folk now. Come inside, you must be half-starved and in need of washing up." Martha linked her arm through Sophia's and led her toward the house, continuing a steady stream of conversation. "We don't get many visitors out here, especially not lady visitors. It'll be nice having another woman around, even if just for a while. The men try, bless them, but they've no sense of proper conversation. It's all cattle prices and fence repairs." The main house was surprisingly comfortable inside, simple but clean, with handmade furniture and bright quilts adding warmth. A large stone fireplace dominated one wall of the main room, with a cooking area to one side and a long dining table to the other. Doors led off to what Sophia presumed were bedrooms. "You can have the spare room," Martha said, leading her to a small but tidy chamber with a narrow bed, a chest of drawers, and a washstand. "It's not much, but it's private." "It's perfect," Sophia said, emotion suddenly tightening her throat. "I can't thank you enough for your kindness." Martha patted her arm. "That's what decent folks do. Now wash up. Dinner will be ready soon, and you look like you could use a good meal." Left alone, Sophia poured water from the pitcher into the basin and scrubbed her face and hands. The cool water revived her, washing away some of the day's dust and despair. She changed into her cleanest remaining dress, a simple blue cotton, and attempted to tame her dark hair into a presentable bun. Looking in the small mirror above the washstand, Sophia hardly recognized herself. 2 months on the trail had tanned her normally pale skin and faded the light freckles across her nose. Her green eyes seemed larger, wearier. She was thinner, too, trail rations being what they were, but she was alive and for now safe. When she emerged, the men had cleaned up as well, exchanging their dusty riding clothes for simple but clean attire. Russell stood by the fireplace, talking quietly with his brothers. He glanced up as she entered, and something in his expression made Sophia's heart flutter strangely. "Feel better?" he asked as she approached. "Much," she replied. "Mr. Hayes, I want to thank you again for your kindness. Not many would stop for a stranger." "Russell, please," he said, And out here, leaving someone in trouble isn't an option. The land's hard enough without people being cruel to one another. Dinner was a revelation after weeks of bland trail food. Martha had prepared venison stew, fresh bread, and preserved peaches. The conversation flowed easily, the Hayes brothers sharing stories of ranch life while carefully avoiding pressing Sophia for details about her family's abandonment. She learned that Russell and his brothers had established the ranch 5 years earlier, after serving together in the Army. Their parents had died of fever back east, leaving them with a modest inheritance they'd used to claim land and buy initial stock. They'd built everything from the ground up, surviving drought, harsh winters, and occasional trouble from rustlers. "What will you do now, Miss Montgomery?" Timothy asked as they finished the meal. Sophia set down her spoon, the question bringing her back to reality. "I'm not entirely sure. I have a little money saved, not much, but perhaps enough to get me to the nearest town. I'm educated. I could seek a position as a teacher or companion." "Nearest town of any size is Laramie," Russell said, "and that's 2 days' hard ride. Not much call for teachers in the smaller settlements, though I reckon any place would be better for having one." "You're welcome to stay here while you sort things out," Martha offered. "An extra pair of hands is always useful, and I wouldn't mind the company." "I couldn't impose," Sophia began, but Russell interrupted. "It's not an imposition. Winter's coming in a few months. Traveling then wouldn't be wise, especially if you're headed back east. Besides," he added with a small smile, "Martha's been wanting another woman around for years." "You'd be doing us a favor." Sophia looked around the table at these strangers who had shown her more kindness in a few hours than her family had in years. "If you're certain, then yes, I accept. I'll earn my keep, I promise." "That's settled then," Russell said with a nod. "Welcome to the Double H, Miss Montgomery." Later, lying in the narrow bed in her new room, Sophia listened to the unfamiliar sounds of the ranch settling for the night. A dog barked in the distance. The wind whispered around the eaves. Somewhere, a horse nickered softly. For the first time since her father's announcement that she would marry Mr. Holloway, Sophia felt a measure of peace. She had no idea what the future held, but tonight she was safe. Tomorrow would take care of itself. The following weeks brought a new rhythm to Sophia's life. She rose with the sun, helping Martha prepare breakfast for the men before they headed out to their daily tasks. The ranch work never ceased. There were always cattle to tend, horses to train, fences to mend, and preparations for winter to be made. Sophia threw herself into learning everything she could. She had always been quick to master new skills, and ranch life presented plenty of challenges. Martha taught her to make soap, preserve food, and bake bread in the temperamental iron stove. When Timothy's wife fell ill with a fever, Sophia took over most of the household duties, proving herself invaluable. Russell often worked from dawn until dusk, but he made time each evening to check on Sophia, asking about her day and sharing stories of his own. Sometimes they sat on the porch after dinner, watching the stars emerge in the vast Wyoming sky. He was different from the men she had known in Philadelphia, straightforward and honest, with none of the social games she had grown to despise. "Did you always want to be a rancher?" she asked him one evening as they sat side by side on the porch steps, the autumn air crisp around them. Russell took a sip from his coffee cup before answering. "No, thought I'd be a soldier like my father. The army suited me well enough, but after the war." He paused, saw too much death. "Wanted to build something instead of destroying. Land seemed like the answer." "You've built something remarkable here," Sophia said, looking out at the ranch that had become her sanctuary. "It's a work in progress," he replied, his eyes following hers. "Always will be." After a moment he asked, "What about you? Before all this, what did you want?" Sophia considered the question. "Freedom, I suppose. My parents had very specific ideas about a woman's place. Education was acceptable only insofar as it made me an ornamental conversation partner for my future husband." "And that wasn't enough for you?" "No, I wanted to read philosophy and history, not just poetry selected for its inoffensiveness. I wanted to form my own opinions, not parrot my father's." She smiled ruefully. "I was a disappointment long before I refused Mr. Holloway's proposal." "Sounds to me like they were the disappointment," Russell said quietly. A parent should nurture their child's spirit, not crush it. The conviction in his voice touched something deep within Sophia. You would make a good father, Russell Hayes. His eyes met hers, something unspoken passing between them. Maybe someday, he said finally, rising to his feet. Getting late, best get some rest. That night, Sophia lay awake longer than usual, thinking about Russell, his quiet strength, his kindness, the way his eyes crinkled when he smiled. She was developing feelings for him, she realized, with a mixture of alarm and excitement. Feelings that went far beyond gratitude for her rescue. The first snowfall came in late October, earlier than expected. Sophia woke to a world transformed, the ranch blanketed in pristine white, the distant mountains sharp against a crystalline blue sky. The beauty took her breath away, but Martha's worried expression at breakfast tempered her delight. Early snow means a hard winter, the older woman explained as she kneaded bread dough with more force than necessary. We've still got cattle in the north pasture that need bringing down. The men ate quickly and headed out, bundled against the cold. When they hadn't returned by dusk, Martha's worry became palpable. She paced the main room, checking the windows every few minutes. This isn't like them, she said, wringing her hands. They should have been back hours ago. Just as Sophia was about to suggest they search for the men, the door burst open. Joseph staggered in, supporting Timothy, whose face was gray with pain. Horse slipped on ice, Joseph explained as they eased Timothy into a chair. Fell on his leg, think it's broken. Where's Russell? Sophia asked, dread pooling in her stomach. Still out there, Joseph said grimly. The cattle scattered when Tim fell. Russell went after them, storms coming in fast. Martha was already examining Timothy's leg, her hands gentle but sure. Definitely broken, we need to set it. She looked up at Joseph. You need to go back out and find Russell. Joseph shook his head. Can't, my horse went lame getting Tim back. The others are exhausted. I'll go, Sophia said, surprising herself as much as the others. Absolutely not, Martha protested. You don't know the ranch well enough. I've ridden with Russell to the north pasture twice now, Sophia countered. I know the way, and I'm a stronger rider than you might think. Joseph studied her for a moment, then nodded slowly. She's right, Martha. And we can't leave Russell out there in a storm. Minutes later, Sophia was mounted on the most sure-footed of the remaining horses, wrapped in Russell's spare coat and carrying supplies Martha had hurriedly packed. The temperature was dropping rapidly, and snow had begun to fall again, fat, heavy flakes that reduced visibility with each passing minute. Follow the creek north, Joseph instructed. The cattle would have headed for the sheltered valley beyond the ridge. If you don't find him in an hour, turn back. No sense losing you both. Sophia nodded, her determination outweighing her fear. I'll find him. The journey north was harrowing. The snow grew thicker, the wind cutting through even Russell's heavy coat. Sophia kept the creek to her right, trusting the horse's instincts when the path became difficult to see. Every instinct told her to turn back, to seek the safety of the ranch house, but the thought of Russell alone in the storm drove her forward. Near the ridge Joseph had mentioned, Sophia spotted cattle tracks in the fresh snow leading into a sheltered valley. Hope surged within her. She followed the tracks, squinting through the swirling snow. Russell, she called, her voice swallowed by the wind. Russell. A shape materialized from the whiteness, a horse and rider, moving slowly. Sophia urged her mount forward, relief washing over her as Russell's familiar figure came into focus. Sophia, his voice was incredulous as she reached him. What in God's name are you doing out here? Looking for you, she replied, her teeth chattering. Timothy's hurt, we were worried. Even through the snow, she could see the mixture of concern and admiration in his expression. You shouldn't have come, it's too dangerous. So is freezing to death alone, she countered. Did you find the cattle? Russell nodded, gesturing to a group of dark shapes huddled in a protected hollow nearby. Got them to safety, was heading back when the storm worsened. He studied the sky, which was darkening both with evening and thickening clouds. We can't make it back to the ranch tonight. There's a line shack about half a mile east. We'll shelter there. The line shack was little more than a one-room cabin with a small stove, a rough bunk, and basic supplies. Russell tended to the horses in the lean-to shelter while Sophia started a fire in the stove. By the time he came inside, stomping snow from his boots, she had the small space warming and a pot of coffee brewing from the supplies in her saddlebag. "You're full of surprises, Sophia Montgomery," Russell said, hanging his snow-covered coat by the door. "Philadelphia society might be rigid, but it doesn't make one helpless," she replied, pouring coffee into a tin cup for him. "How is Timothy?" Joseph said. "It's a clean break." "Martha's set bones before." He accepted the coffee gratefully, their fingers brushing in the exchange. "Thank you, not just for this, for coming after me." "You saved my life," Sophia said simply. "I was returning the favor." Russell settled on a wooden stool, his tall frame making the small cabin seem even smaller. "Is that the only reason?" The directness of his question caught Sophia off guard. In the orange glow of the stove light, with snow piling against the single window, the world outside seemed very far away. It was just the two of them, alone with a truth that had been building for weeks. "No," she admitted softly, "that's not the only reason." Russell set down his cup and stood, crossing the small space to stand before her. His blue eyes searched hers, looking for confirmation of what he'd heard in her voice. "I've been fighting this," he said, his voice low and rough with emotion. "You deserve better than a rough cowboy with calloused hands and not much to offer beyond this land." Sophia reached up, placing her palm against his cheek, feeling the scratch of his beard against her skin. "I've had better according to society's standards. Men with soft hands and grand houses who saw me as property to be acquired. I'll take the cowboy with the honest heart." For a moment, Russell remained still, as if giving her a chance to reconsider. Then he lowered his head, his lips meeting hers in a kiss that started gentle but quickly deepened with weeks of restrained longing. Sophia wound her arms around his neck, pressing closer, feeling the solid strength of him against her. When they finally parted, both breathless, Russell rested his forehead against hers. "I've wanted to do that since the day I found you on the plains. Why did you wait so long?" she asked, smiling up at him. "Wasn't sure you felt the same, and I didn't want you to feel obligated given your situation." "I've never felt obligated to you, Russell," Sophia said. "Grateful, yes, but what I feel now goes far beyond gratitude." He kissed her again, and for hours they talked as they never had before, sharing hopes and fears, past wounds and future dreams. The storm raged outside, but within the tiny cabin, something beautiful was taking root, something neither had expected to find in the wilds of Wyoming Territory. They slept side by side on the narrow bunk, Russell's arm protectively around Sophia, both fully clothed and warmed by the stove's dwindling heat. When morning came, the storm had passed, leaving a transformed landscape of pristine white as far as the eye could see. They rode back to the ranch together, the brilliance of the snow-covered plains matched by the light in their hearts. As the ranch buildings came into view, Russell reined his horse to a stop. "Before we get back," he said, turning in his saddle to face Sophia, "I need to say something." Sophia's heart quickened at the seriousness in his tone. "What is it?" "I know it's fast, too fast maybe, but life out here has taught me not to waste time when something matters." His eyes held her steadily. "I love you, Sophia Montgomery. I want you to stay, not as our guest, but as my wife." "If you need time to think about it." "Yes," Sophia interrupted, her face breaking into a radiant smile. "I don't need time. I love you too, Russell. I want to build a life here with you." The joy that transformed his weathered face was something Sophia knew she would remember until her dying day. He leaned across the space between their horses and kissed her, right there in the open, with the winter sun shining down upon them. Martha's reaction to their announcement was a knowing smile and a muttered, "About time." Timothy, his legs splinted and bound, offered hearty congratulations from his sick. Joseph whooped with delight, declaring that Russell had finally found someone to civilize him properly. With no family of her own to consult and winter making travel difficult, there was no reason to delay. They were married 3 weeks later by a traveling preacher who stopped at the ranch on his circuit. The ceremony was simple. Sophia in her best dress with wildflowers Martha had somehow coaxed to bloom indoors. Russell in clean denims and a new shirt. Their vows exchanged before the fireplace where they had first begun to know one another. That night, when Russell took her to the small cabin he had been building on the ranch property, his surprise for her, worked on during every spare moment of the past weeks, Sophia felt tears of joy sting her eyes. "It's not finished," he apologized, gesturing to the interior where only the main room and bedroom were completed. "I'll add more come spring. It's perfect," she whispered, drawing his face down for a kiss. "It's ours." Their first winter as husband and wife was both challenging and beautiful. The season was harsh, as Martha had predicted, with storms that howled around their cabin and temperatures that froze the creek solid. But inside, they created warmth of every kind, the physical warmth of the hearth Russell tended faithfully, and the deeper warmth of two souls finding in each other exactly what they needed. Sophia learned the rhythms of ranch life, rising before dawn with Russell, helping with the endless winter tasks, feeding livestock, breaking ice on water troughs, mending harnesses and clothes by lamplight. It was hard work, harder than anything she had known in her previous life, but it brought a satisfaction she had never experienced. At night, they would lie together in their bed, planning for spring, the garden Sophia would plant, the addition to their cabin, the foals expected from the mares, the calves that would strengthen their herd. In those quiet moments, wrapped in each other's arms while the winter wind sang around their home, Sophia marveled at how completely her life had transformed. "Do you ever regret it?" Russell asked one night, his voice soft in the darkness. "Saying no to your family's plans? Ending up here instead of Oregon?" Sophia traced the line of his jaw with her fingertips. "How could I regret the best decision I ever made? If I had agreed to marry Mr. Holloway, I would never have known what it means to truly love someone, to be loved for exactly who I am." "Your father was a fool," Russell murmured, pressing a kiss to her palm, "throwing away a treasure like you." "His loss was your gain," she replied, snuggling closer. "Our gain," he corrected. "You're not just my wife, Sophia, you're family, the family I choose." As winter gradually released its grip on the land, signs of new life emerged everywhere, green shoots pushing through the melting snow, birds returning from their southern journey, the land awakening from its slumber. Sophia, too, carried new life within her, a secret she shared with Russell one evening as they sat on the porch of their cabin watching the sunset paint the western sky. His joy was boundless, his protective instincts immediately heightened. Though Sophia assured him that women had been having babies since the beginning of time, Russell insisted on consulting the nearest doctor, a 2-day ride away. He returned with books on childbirth, tonics for morning sickness, and a determination to expand their cabin immediately to include a nursery. Martha, who had borne 3 children of her own before losing them to the fever that had claimed Timothy's first wife, became Sophia's guide and confidante. She shared wisdom passed down through generations of frontier women, teaching Sophia to trust her body and her instincts. "Women are stronger than men give us credit for," she said as they prepared baby clothes from soft flannel. "We bend where they would break. That's how we survive out here." As Sophia's body changed with the advancing pregnancy, she found herself reflecting on her journey. 1 year earlier, she had been in Philadelphia, constrained by society's expectations, her future mapped out without her consent. Now she was in Wyoming Territory, married to a man she adored, carrying their child, helping to build something lasting and meaningful. Her family had abandoned her, leaving her to die. But in doing so, they had unknowingly given her the greatest gift, the chance to find where she truly belonged. The baby came in late October, as the first snowflakes of winter danced outside the window. After hours of labor with Martha attending and Russell pacing anxiously nearby, Sophia gave birth to a daughter small but strong, with a powerful set of lungs and her father's blue eyes. "She's perfect," Russell whispered, cradling the tiny bundle with hands that seemed suddenly too large and rough for such a delicate task. The wonder in his eyes as he gazed at their daughter made Sophia fall in love with him all over again. They named her Emma Grace Hayes, Emma for Russell's mother, grace for the blessings she represented in their lives. She quickly became the center of their world, her milestones celebrated by the entire ranch. Timothy carved her a cradle of polished pine. Joseph fashioned a mobile of carved wooden animals to hang above it. Martha knitted blankets and tiny socks, singing old lullabies as she worked. As Emma grew, so did the ranch. Russell's careful management and innovative breeding practices began to pay off, allowing them to purchase additional land and cattle. Sophia's vegetable garden expanded into a small orchard, and she began selling preserves and baked goods to passing travelers, creating an additional income stream that she set aside for Emma's education. Their family grew as well. 2 years after Emma's birth, Sophia gave birth to twins, a boy and a girl they named William and Catherine. The following year brought another son, James. Their cabin expanded accordingly, Russell adding rooms with each new arrival until it became a proper house, with a wide porch wrapping around 3 sides and windows that caught the light at all hours of the day. Life wasn't without hardships. There were dry years when the crops struggled and cattle grew thin. There were illnesses that swept through the family, leaving Sophia and Russell exhausted from nights spent tending sick children. There were disputes with neighboring ranchers over water rights and grazing boundaries. But through it all, they faced each challenge together, their partnership growing stronger with each obstacle overcome. Russell never made decisions without consulting Sophia, valuing her intelligence and insight. Sophia, in turn, supported Russell's vision for the ranch while developing her own enterprises and interests. When Emma turned 8, Sophia converted one room of their home into a schoolroom and began teaching not only her own children, but those from neighboring ranches as well. Her reputation as an educator spread, and soon families were sending children to board with them during the week to receive an education otherwise unavailable in that remote part of Wyoming. "You've created something remarkable," Russell told her one evening as they watched the sunset from their porch, the sounds of children playing in the yard filling the air around them. "Those children will shape this territory because of what you've taught them." "We've created something remarkable," Sophia corrected, leaning her head against his shoulder. "All of this, the ranch, the school, our family, it's what we've built together." Russell kissed the top of her head, his arm tightening around her waist. "Remember that first night at the line shack? When the storm trapped us, how could I forget? It was the first time you kissed me. I knew then that I'd found not just the woman I wanted to marry, but the person I wanted to build a life with." He gestured toward their home, the outbuildings, the prosperous ranch that spread around them. "This is more than I ever dreamed possible." "For me too," Sophia said softly. "When my family left me on that plane, I thought my life was ending. I had no way of knowing it was just beginning." 10 years to the day after Russell had found Sophia alone on the plains, they hosted a celebration at the ranch. Friends and neighbors from miles around gathered to share food, music, and stories. The Hayes Ranch had become a centerpiece of the community, a place where travelers could find shelter, where children received education, where neighboring ranchers came for advice and assistance. As evening fell, lanterns were lit around the yard, and someone began playing a fiddle. Russell extended his hand to Sophia, leading her into an impromptu dance floor created by their guests. "Mrs. Hayes," he said with a formal bow that made her laugh, "may I have this dance?" "Always," she replied, stepping into his arms. As they moved together under the stars, their 4 children watching with delight, Sophia reflected on the journey that had brought her here. Her father had called her stubborn and willful for refusing to marry according to his wishes. He had seen her independence as a flaw to be corrected rather than a strength to be nurtured. But Russell had recognized that strength from the beginning. He had offered her not just safety but partnership, not just protection but respect. He had taken her hand when she was alone and called her family, and together they had created something beautiful. "What are you thinking?" Russell asked, noticing her contemplative expression. Sophia smiled up at the man who had changed her life with a simple act of kindness on a dusty plain. I'm thinking that sometimes being left behind is the best thing that can happen to a person if it leads them to where they truly belong. Russell's eyes, still as blue and clear as the day they met, crinkled at the corners as he smiled. And where do you belong, Sophia Hayes? She rose on tiptoe to kiss him there in front of everyone, unashamed of showing her love. Right here, she whispered against his lips, always right here with you. As the music played on and their children joined the dance, Sophia and Russell continued to move together under the vast Wyoming sky, two people who had found in each other not just love, but home. The years continued to flow, each season bringing its own joys and challenges to the Hayes family. Emma, their firstborn, grew into a young woman with her mother's intelligence and her father's steady determination. At 18, she surprised them by announcing her intention to attend the newly established University of Wyoming, the first woman in their part of the territory to seek higher education. "Are you sure about this?" Russell asked as they discussed her plans one evening. "It's a long way to Laramie, and you'll be mostly among men." Emma's chin lifted in a gesture so reminiscent of Sophia that it made Russell smile despite his concerns. "The university has specifically opened its doors to women, Pa. President Hoyt himself wrote that he believes in equal education for both sexes." "She'll be fine, Russell," Sophia said, placing a reassuring hand on his arm. "We raised her to think for herself and stand her ground. Besides, Martha's nephew Samuel lives in Laramie. He'll keep an eye on her." Though Russell worried, he and Sophia both supported Emma's decision. They had worked too hard to give their children choices to stand in the way of their daughter's dreams. The day they put her on the stagecoach to Laramie was bittersweet pride mingling with the pain of separation. "She reminds me of you," Russell said as they watched the stagecoach disappear in a cloud of dust. "Same fire, same courage. Let's hope she finds a man who appreciates those qualities as much as you do," Sophia replied, squeezing his hand. The twins, William and Catherine, were 16 now, as different as siblings could be despite sharing a birthday. William had Russell's love for the land and cattle, spending every possible moment working alongside his father and uncles, absorbing knowledge about breeding stock and land management. Catherine had revealed an unexpected talent for medicine, serving as an unofficial apprentice to Dr. Miller whenever the physician visited the area. Young James, at 15, was the family scholar devouring every book in Sophia's growing library, and showing a gift for languages that had him conversing in basic Spanish with the Mexican vaqueros, who sometimes worked on the ranch. As their children grew more independent, Sophia and Russell found new dimensions to their relationship. The passionate young couple they had been had matured into partners who could communicate with a glance, who knew each other's thoughts almost before they were formed. Their love had deepened with each shared joy and sorrow, each challenge overcome together. The ranch had prospered beyond their early dreams, growing to encompass over 5,000 acres with several hundred head of cattle and a renowned breeding program for quarter horses. The school Sophia had started in their home had expanded into a proper schoolhouse that served children from across the county, with 2 additional teachers now working under her direction. Their 20th anniversary arrived on a perfect autumn day, the aspens turning gold against the blue Wyoming sky. Russell surprised Sophia by taking her on a special ride, just the two of them. "Where are we going?" she asked as they set out, noting he had packed saddlebags with what appeared to be a picnic. "You'll see," he replied with the same mischievous smile that still made her heart skip. He led her along familiar trails until they reached a spot that made Sophia gasp in recognition the exact place where they had found her 20 years earlier, abandoned by her family. Russell dismounted and helped her down, then spread a blanket beneath a cottonwood tree that had grown tall and strong since that fateful day. "Why here?" Sophia asked, emotion making her voice husky. Russell took her hands in his eyes holding hers with the same intensity they had when he'd proposed all those years ago. "Because this is where our story began," he said simply. "The worst day of your life became the best day of mine the day I found you, Tears pricked Sophia's eyes. I was so afraid that day, so sure my life was over. And look at what you've built instead, Russell said, gesturing around them. In the distance, they could see the boundaries of their ranch, the smoke from the chimney of their home. You turned abandonment into triumph, Sophia. You've changed not just my life, but this whole community. From the saddlebags, he produced a small wooden box intricately carved with roses and vines. I've been working on this for months, he admitted, handing it to her. Inside, Sophia found a gold locket. When she opened it, one side held a tiny painting of their family, Russell, herself, and their 4 children, while the other contained an inscription. Found you once, choose you always. It's beautiful, she whispered, tears now flowing freely. Russell gently wiped them away with his thumb. 20 years ago, I promised to make you my family. I hope I've kept that promise. You've given me more than family, Sophia said, clasping the locket around her neck. You've given me a home, a purpose, a life filled with love. You truly saw me when my own blood couldn't. They shared a kiss as sweet and promising as their first, there under the cottonwood tree where their journey together had begun. The years had etched lines around their eyes and sprinkled silver in their hair, but the connection between them remained undiminished, strengthened by each passing season. As they picnicked in the autumn sunshine, they shared memories and made plans for the future: the upcoming harvest festival, Emma's holiday visit from university, Catherine's interest in medical school back east. Did you ever imagine our life would turn out this way? Sophia asked as they packed up to return home. Russell smiled, helping her mount her horse. Not in my wildest dreams, but then I never imagined finding a woman like you in the middle of nowhere either. I'm glad your sense of decency wouldn't let you ride past, Sophia said, her eyes twinkling. Best decision I ever made, Russell replied, mounting his own horse. Now let's go home, Mrs. Hayes. Our family will be waiting. They rode side by side across the Golden Plains, 2 people who had found in each other everything they needed: strength, understanding, partnership, and a love that had only grown richer with time. Behind them lay the past with all its pain and abandonment. Before them stretched the future they had built together, one day at a time. And all around them, bathed in autumn light, sprawled the land that had witnessed their beginning, the wild, beautiful Wyoming country that had first separated Sophia from her blood kin, only to give her a truer family in return. Race you home. Sophia challenged suddenly, her spirit as adventurous at 42 as it had been at 22. Russell laughed, the sound carrying across the open range. You're on. They galloped toward home, toward the life they had created from nothing but hope and hard work, and love, a legacy that would endure long after they were gone, in the ranch that bore their name and the children who carried their values forward. For Sophia Hayes, once abandoned and now cherished, life had come full circle. The woman left behind had found where she truly belonged alongside the cowboy who had taken her hand and called her his family.